Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate and the game that we've all been waiting for, the rematch, Oregon-Washington, Pac-12 championship on the line, college football playoff berth, most likely on the line as well. This is a game that when you saw them play October 14th, I think every college football fan in the country said, we want to see that one run back one more time. We get our wish. Pac-12 championship. Really excited for this one. Two of the best quarterbacks and offenses that you see in college football. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys and a special shout out to the Oregon, to the Washington fans. These are two teams that we've talked a ton about, and the amount of support you guys have shown the boys, it really does mean a lot. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. What a way for the Pac-12 to go out with probably one of the best games that we'll see all college football season long. Dill, I'm going to give you the opening word here, the T-Box, Washington, Oregon. How we feeling?
I mean, obviously, if you're a college football fan, you're excited to essentially get to watch back probably the second best football game we got to see, arguably the first one, depending on if you want to say the Michigan-Ohio State game was one or two. But those two, I think, have set themselves far above any other game. And obviously, this Alabama-Georgia one's going to be a fun one. But these have been the two best games. And the Pac-12 doing the divisionless thing, that we get the treat of seeing them run this back.
And that's what I'm most focused on is you're going to see, and arguably, I think to add to the stakes, the Heisman Trophy, arguably on the line between Michael Penix and Bo Nix, their last two statements to show why they're the Heisman in the 2023 year. Excited to get into it, Dill. I want to start with this Washington offense going up against an Oregon defense, and we talked a little bit about this on Friday night, recapping that Oregon State game. A lot of credit, deserving credit, but a lot of credit and a lot of hype goes to Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving, Tez Johnson, and how dynamic and how explosive this Oregon offense has been. And not enough people are talking about how good this Oregon defense has been, especially when you look at the improvement it's shown from year one in year two under Dan Lanning. Just some numbers. I mean, 16.7 points per game. That's ninth in the country. They are only allowed 3.2 yards per carry. That's 13th in the country. And you look at the back end, only 6.2 yards per pass attempt. That's number in the country. Top 10 in most top statistical categories for defense. The job Dan Lanning has done, not only throughout the offseason, but I think you've seen meaningful improvement from week 1 to week 12. Just a masterclass by Tosh Lupoy and Dan Lanning.
And you get to see essentially they can play any style you want. You go up and play an Oregon State team who wants to play physical and try to push you around. Oregon State very much handled them up front and dominated that football game. You have the stark contrast in what USC wants to do, create some space, test you across the field and hit every point on it. They were obviously able to very much handle that, and especially got to see a glimpse of the pass rush come alive, which I think we've all been kind of looking for. This defense is really rounding into a more complete defense, which frankly you need to be against Washington because they can run the ball and they can obviously throw it, and they're as complete of an offense as you'll see.
Yeah, and I think you noted it best. The biggest storyline that I'm keeping my eyes on, there's not many ways to stop Michael Penix in this offense. It's just a lot of weapons, a lot of dynamic players. But one way to get Michael Penix a little bit off his spot, a little bit off his game, is getting that pass rush going. And if you're an Oregon fan, that's what you're most excited for heading into this game that you didn't see a ton against Washington in the first game around. I mean, Jordan Burch, Brandon Dorlus, Popo Mavi, Mateo Yu as a true freshman. This has been a pass rush that's made meaningful strides since you've seen them in that October 14th game. And you look at the story of this game, I think it's going to be this Oregon pass rush and getting to Michael Penix with your front four, because you've seen the numbers with Michael Penix facing blitzes. He's dynamite. He's going to hit the big play. He's very good with pressure in his face. But if you can get pressure with your front four, that's got to be the key for this Oregon defense to at least slow down what Michael Penix and this Washington Huskies team can do.
Yeah, and that's a big part. And obviously, you're starting to see some young guys play really well. I mean, Mateo Yu's been playing well pretty much all year. Blake Purchase has come in and done a good job for them. But frankly, it's Jordan Burch to me. I think he's taken his game up. He's got to be that guy. He's got to be able to dominate tackles when he gets his matchup. And I think he's been doing that a little more. And that makes this Oregon defense far more dangerous. Because you're right. At the beginning of the year, they really weren't getting after teams with their front four. But that has come along a bit. And that they're going to have to do that against a Washington Huskies offensive line that does not get enough credit.
Yeah, Jordan Burch, Brandon Dorlus, and two guys that you can line up all over the line of scrimmage. Like, you can line them up in different spots and kind of choose your matchup. If you see, and we've talked about it, if you want to get pressure, they got some really good tackles. If you want to get after Michael Penix, the A and B gaps working against those centers and guards, probably where you want to do it. And Jordan Burch and Brandon Dorlus, the body types that you can move around and kind of get your matchup. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. Like Jordan Burch, Brandon Dorlus, this is the game for them to take over. Now, we went 5 minutes. We talked about the Oregon defense. It's time to talk a little bit about this Washington offense, where I'll start. Like, too many people are reading too much into, like, they expect this offense to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, the sky's falling. This is still one of the best offenses in the country. They're averaging 7.2 yards per play. That's number 3 in the country, Dill. This Washington offense, getting McMillan back, who wasn't healthy during that Oregon game the first go-around, it's going to be a massive storyline. How are we feeling about this Huskies offense here?
A big thing for me that I want to see Washington get back to a little bit more is being able to spread the football around. Yes. I think you want Polk and McMillan more involved in the football game. And obviously McMillan's been hurt and they've struggled with the injuries there, but you want to see kind of all three of those guys getting their touches. I think right now, or at times when they slow down or get a little stagnant, it becomes the Odunze, Michael Penix show, and you kind of ignore the rest of the football field. That's okay, because obviously you do have your trump card in Odunze, and he's the man. He should be the one getting most of the touches. But I do think what made this Washington offense feel so dangerous when they're looking their best is they're dotting the whole field. And they got 3 guys who are really, really athletic, really good, and can touch every portion of the field. And that, to me, is what they need to get back to if they want to kind of look like they can, what their peak is.
Could not agree more. And I'll say this, the Odunze Michael Penix show, I would pay a high price to go to that show, get some tickets for. That being said, like you said, the Washington offense is at its best when they're firing the ball all over the field. And it's not just Jerome, who, again, he's the guy. He's going to be making the plays. He's arguably the best player on the football field in some points. But you also have 2 other NFL wide receivers and maybe even 3 with Jeremy Bernard that can make some plays. And when this Washington team, what makes them so special is they spread you so thin. And they make you cover every single blade of grass. And when you want to do that, you have to have McMillan and Polk involved too. That's exactly what I'm looking for as well. Pass protection, going to be a big storyline, and getting Dylan Johnson going. I think one of the bright spots for this Washington team to see, like, the last couple of weeks is, okay, if the passing game is not working, we have the ability to run the football and be physical and establish that run. Little two-dimensionality. I really do like that from the Huskies. Flipping the script, let's talk a little bodacious. Bo Nix, the last couple of weeks, this Oregon offense has been just a Death Star. I mean, they've been just pulling Bo Nix out of Arizona State. He had 6 touchdown passes. They said get lost in the third quarter. What Bo and this Oregon offense what makes them so dangerous is how two-dimensional they are as well. And they do a phenomenal job. If you want to leave your safeties high and try to cover guys like Troy Franklin, Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, like, okay, we're going to just run it with a very good offensive line, with a very good running back in Bucky Irvin. And if you want to roll a safety in and try to stop Bucky and stop Bo, that's when you're getting hurt by Troy Franklin, Tez Johnson down the field. Dill, how too dynamic they are makes them extremely hard to stop. How are we feeling about this Ducks offense?
In that, you said it perfectly. Essentially, what both these offenses do and what Oregon's been doing an incredible job of as of late is just it makes it feel like there's only 10 defenders on the field.
Yes.
Because of how much space they can cover with their offense. And to me, the big thing, their big revelation, if you will, for Oregon has been the use of Tez Johnson. When they really get him involved working that middle of the field, it's hard to deal with him when you need to essentially have 2 guys on Troy Franklin, because if you leave him single covered, he's getting over the top of teams very, very consistently and very often, and Bo's hitting him. So you kind of need to keep your safeties back dealing with Troy Franklin. And when you can work Tez Johnson in the middle, you see if he gets some space, he's very dynamic, very athletic. And that to me has been the big thing for Oregon. What's kind of made them better is Tez Johnson's really starting to eat and come along.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think Will Stein is just doing a brilliant, we talked about it. Coach Stein, it's easy when you have Bo and all these weapons, but man, I can't speak enough of how impressive it is to watch this Oregon offense. It's been just a clinic the last couple of weeks. And you said it best. Like, Troy Franklin needs to get his respect on the outside. And what happens? Tez Johnson has space. And when Tez Johnson has space, he's making people miss, hitting the explosive play. And Stein just does a really good job getting those schemes in place. to attack people in one-on-one, and they're making people miss, hitting the big plays. They're looking at this Washington defense, and very similar conversation. And I think this is going to be the story of the game here. You got some good edge rushers yourself, right? Guys like Braylon Trice, ZTF, they had 5 sacks against Washington State. Really the story of how you were able to hang on in that one. The one way to stop the Oregon Ducks is trying to get after the passer and throw Bo Nix off the spot, because both Penix and Bo Nix, if they're sitting in the pocket and they got time, they're dicing defenses up. I think a big storyline is ZTF, Braylon Trice getting after it up front.
Yeah, and obviously trying to get after Connerly, a young left tackle who's playing really, really well, or AJ Cornelius, frankly, who has had his moments in pass protection. I do think those two are playing far better, which is a big thing, another big plus for what Oregon's doing. But yeah, Trice and ZTF are hard to handle. And if they can really get after it, they can be super disruptive. I mean, those two are one of the better edge rush tandems in my eyes, especially in their ability, not necessarily to get a ton of sacks, but just be disruptive and make it hard to like flush guys out of the pocket.
Pocket disruptors. I mean, they just destroy pockets. And you said it best. For Washington, the weaker link is probably on the inside of the offensive line, because Troy Fautenow, that's hard to get to at that tackle spot. And for Oregon, if you're trying to get after Bo Nix, you're probably trying to go after the second-year starter and second-year player, I should say, in Josh Conley Jr. And then the back end, you look at Cam Ward and watching back that game, checking the box score, 317 yards. He had himself a good day. You watch that game again, like Cam Ward was just balling out, like just making some really good throws. And that's kind of what you saw for this game on October 14th. Like both quarterbacks just played really, really good football and were able to. It's kind of the story of that game is Michael Penix just came up with the throws. I like this Washington secondary. I think Jabbar Muhammad has been an absolute beast for the Huskies. They'll get into the pick here. Washington now, 8.5-point underdogs, neutral site against the Oregon Ducks. How are we feeling about it?
Yeah, this is, I mean, I love Oregon. I think they should be the favorite to win this rematch, but 8.5 points, that's like crazy to me. I mean, Washington's still really good. I think this should be closer to maybe 3-ish. So I'll take Washington just by the nature of the points. I think that's way too many points for a team as good as Washington. I get maybe they haven't played great every week, but this is still a really, really good football team.
I think I agree with that in the sense that people are reading too much into Washington. Like they're still undefeated. They still haven't lost the game. And yes, have they looked like the Terminator? No, probably not. But you know they're going to game up for this. Kalen DeBoer says it all the time. This team is built for these kind of moments. But
they're gamers.
And I hate to do this. Like these are two teams that I just love talking about. I'm going to take the Oregon Ducks. And the reason I'm going to take the Oregon Ducks is you go back to that game in Husky Stadium. One, Oregon outgained them. I think it came down to a couple fourth down conversions. But even more importantly, I'm not like a go back in time and say Oregon was the better team. But as of going into Week 13, the Pac-12 championship game, I think Oregon is the better team. I think the improvement you've seen from that game to what you see from Oregon this time, the defensive line playing much, much better. I think the secondary's been playing better. And most importantly, I think that offensive line has really come along. It's a lot of points. Give me the Oregon Ducks to take care of business here. Massive game. Game of the year potential written all over it. The fellas are pumped. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown the boys. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.